Hi, Achim Stoffel, InnerSpace Explorers. Today we do the second part of the Ratio Deco video, and I'll just give you a quick idea on how to use the number you gain from the Ratio Deco method and create an ascent from that number. So, very important, whatever I do here is a sample to give you an idea of an ascent. Please do not use this to go in diving. I don't want to hear any complaints afterward like, I did this dive and I used the numbers that the guy in the video put on his board and now I got bent. So this is a pure sample, easy numbers, and not a deco lecture that doesn't substitute a proper training and a proper certification. So don't blame me on this if you end up in a chamber. Alright, we said last time that there is a fixed ratio between a bottom time and a certain depth. So as most people know about the one-on-one ratio, so we use this as an example just to make it simple. So let's say we have this ratio of 1:1 at 45 meters as our target depth. So that means that every minute that we spend on 45 meters leads to 1 minute of total decompression time. Super simple. If I do a 30-minute dive on 45 meters, I have 30 minutes of decompression total. Well, that's super. That's simple. That's when in the last video I said if I have my my bottom time and I know my average depth, I already know how much deco I have to do. That's perfect. So now the big question is, how do I spread this 30 minutes? So let's make that example. So we said we were 45 meters and we do a 30-minute dive, 30-minute bottom time. And obviously this this ratio is based on a certain gas. So it's not that you can do this with nitrox, air, trimix, whatever funny mixture you come up with. This is based on a certain bottom gas and a certain decompression gas. So let's say we use here as a bottom gas 2135 plus 50% nitrox. Alright? So that's our setup. That's the foundation of the dive. We have a one-on-one ratio at 45 meters and only if we use these gases, 2135 plus 50% nitrox, and in our example we do a 30-minute bottom time. That's what everything will be based on. So we say that there's certain deco segments on our way up. So if you think about your deco stops, you have the 3-meter stop, you have a 6-meter stop, a 9-meter stop, a 12-meter stop, a 15-meter stop, an 18-meter stop, and a 21-meter stop. Obviously I can continue that further down, but as we use 2135 and 50%, we can assume that our first decompression stop is at 21 meters because that's why we switch to 50%. So if you're not trained on that, just believe me and take it as granted. 21 meter is where you switch to your decompression gas in that dive, and that's why we're going to start our decompression there. Obviously decompression takes place before that, but that's where we start counting our decompression time. So all the way from 45 up to 21 is not considered decompression time, that's ascent time, and it's not part of this one-on-one ratio thing. So the 30 minutes of deco time that we gain from our 30 minutes of bottom time, they start at 21 meters and they end when we reach the surface. So now talking about deco segments, we have a shallow segment which is 3 and 6, and we have a so-called intermediate segment, that's the 5 stops from 9 to 21 meters. And you can already see that this methodical approach will help us to spread these stops. I just switch over here because I think it's simpler. So in our example now, let's say we spread the time 50-50. So we do 50% of the time on that shallow part, and we do 50% of our decompression on that deep part. So we said we have 30 minutes of total decompression time, so that means we spend 15 minutes here and we spend 15 minutes here. And now obviously, again, I have to think, how do I spread that? So the first approach can always be, let's spread it linear. So I have 15 minutes, I have 5 stops, that gives us 3, 3, 3, 3, and 3 minutes. Well, pretty simple. And here's the same thing, we could spread it, let's say, 7 and 8, and I have my 15 minutes covered. It will most probably not harm you if you do this. A very, very simple, very efficient way of spreading your decompression time over these stops. And it also shows you that it's a very simple task. When we talked in the last video about decompression on the fly, that's the reason why. It is very, very simple to do this while you're in the water. You probably don't even need your wet notes. And if you need your wet notes, you have all the time on the way to your first stop or on your first stop, because again, you have a given stop. I mean, you don't have to think about this. You know you're going to go up to 20 meters, 21 meters, where you have your stop, and you know you spend a certain amount of time there because you have your gas switch. Your gas switch calls for a certain amount of time to stay there to make that gas switch effective. So that gives you also a lot of time to get out your wet notes and go through your numbers and figure out what's the best way of doing this. And obviously there is other strategies than that. So you can modify these numbers. You can put more weight on a stop here or more weight on a stop here and start building a curve, especially if you start doing deeper dives and you have, instead of the shallow, this intermediate, you start getting more deco segments. So probably starting at 36, 39, 45, God knows where meters, and makes it much more interesting creating this ascent line and this ascent curve. All right, that was a quick one, which you probably appreciate, and I hope it gives you a rough idea of how to use this, this number that we gained based on this ratio. You can probably already think about the next logical step. If you, for example, say you take this off, then you have a ratio of 1 to 2, then obviously you get a different number here, and then obviously you use different gases, but it's the same thing. I spend a certain amount of time at a certain depth, and I know that now my decompression time is twice the time I use on the bottom. So if I then do a 30-minute dive on whatever kind of depth we have, our ratio 1 to 2, then I have 60 minutes of decompression time, and so on and so on and so on. So the next argument could be, well, but what do I do if I do a dive that's not on 45 meters or not on the number where the other ratio is? Well, obviously there is another rule, and the rule says for every 3 meters that you're off your spot, you have plus minus 5 minutes. So let's go back to this one, the 45 minutes. So if I'm at 45 meters, minutes and meters, awesome. If you're at 45 meters, or you plan a 45 meter dive and you do not reach 45, let's say you do a 42 meter dive and you spend 30 minutes there, then you're 3 meters less deep, so obviously you have 5 minutes less deco. So you spend 30 minutes on 42, you have 25 minutes of deco. If you go to 48 meters, you're 3 meters deeper than the set point, and then you would have 35 minutes of deco that you have to spread over your ascent. Alright, I hope that makes sense. There will be a third video soon where I go a little bit more into detail of this and also show you a little bit how I do that in my wet notes. And yeah, I hope that gives you even a better view on this topic. If you have questions, if you have comments, please post them in the comment section. If you want to discuss things in detail, please check out the Patreon site. And I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.